Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. And today I'm going to look at what I believe to be David Bowie's most productive year for getting material out, and that is 1977, because he had two albums of his own in 1977 and he was also very heavily involved in two of Iggy Pop's albums. And then at the end of the year there was the oddest collaboration that he was involved with, which is still hard to believe, but the results I thought were brilliant, or the result. So the four albums we're going to take a look at are Low, and then Iggy Pop's The Idiot, and then Iggy Pop's Lust for Life, and then Heroes. Now we'll actually do these in order of recording. So although the Low came out first, it wasn't actually the first recorded, that was The Idiot. And we'll do it that way. And at the very end I'm going to pick 10 songs from those four albums that I think are my favourite 10 songs, the best songs. Now I'm not going to pick any instrumentals because I don't look at them as songs. I suppose I could say that they're tracks, but we'll go with 10 vocal songs. So first up, this period is known as the Berlin period, and really only two of these albums, one which was David Bowie, were recorded in Berlin. The first one recorded was in 1976, late 76, and that's Iggy Pop's The Idiot, and this actually came out in March of 1977, and I love that cover. I think it is so freaky. It kind of reminds me of is it The Child Catcher in what's that film with Dick Van Dyke, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. But this is a very, very dark album, and all the music was written by Bowie and all the lyrics were written by Iggy Pop. Now Bowie did actually revisit some of these songs later in his career. It starts off with Sister Midnight, which he rehearsed during the 1976 Station to Station tour, and it later became Red Money off Lodger with different lyrics. Nightclubbing, a very, very dark song, but a brilliant moody type track. It's very, it's almost gothic horror than anything. Fantastic song, and it was covered by Grace Jones. In fact, she named her best album Nightclubbing. Fun Time is another one of those very gothic horror ones. It's actually quite witty. Baby is not a bad little song, a bit filler. And then China Girl, which obviously Bowie recorded himself in 1983 for the Let's Dance album, and had a huge hit with it. Side 2 is not quite as good. Dum Dum Boys is not a bad track, but it's a bit plotty. Tiny Girls is fine, and Mass Production is just weird. But this is a really good album, released, as I say, in March of 1977. Now the second one to be recorded, which was actually released in January of 77, was Bowie's Low album. And this is mostly instrumental if you think about it, because there's 7 short tracks on side 1, 2 of them are instrumental, and then 4 ambient tracks on side 2, which are all instrumental with a little bit of sort of backing vocals here and there and stuff that you don't know what he's singing about. But an excellent album, and this has gone down as one of the best albums in Bowie's career. I have it sort of maybe top 10 or just outside the top 10, but it starts off with a brilliant instrumental, Speed of Life, and then you have less than 2 minutes the track Breaking Glass, which I think is wonderful, really, really good. Now in Australia they did expand it to make a single out of it, and it sounds good as well. All they did was repeat the verse again and add it in, so there's nothing new about it, it's just a wee bit added on. But yeah, brilliant track. What in the World actually does feature Iggy Pop, and I think this really should have been the second single off this album. Sound and Vision is just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And it was weird because this was a single. It took a minute and a half for the vocals to come in, which really was unheard of. Always Crashing in the Same Car is a fan's favourite. I like it, but it's never been one of my favourites off this album. It's always sort of mid-table for me. Be My Wife is a good song, almost with a barroom type piano. Very, very good, and it was a single, did nothing. And A New Career in a New Town is a fine short instrumental. It's the second side that I always struggle with, although I really do enjoy it now. Warzawa is over 6 minutes of just ambient brilliance. Art Decade is a really good track which he performed live in 1978. Weeping Wall is my least favourite off this. I just don't like the instruments used. They're, too many sort of, it's hard to say. I just don't like the feel of Weeping Wall. And Subterraneans I think was demoed for The Man Who Fell to Earth, but it wasn't chosen. But a really, really good album, and this is completely different to the idiot, and the recording of this just started immediately after the idiot. But this was a shock. This is not Ziggy, put it that way. It's not even Iggy, but it's a fine album. The next one recorded, and this is the first really of the Berlin trilogy, and it was released in September 1977, and this is Lust for Life. Now he doesn't co-write all of this, but he co-writes a good whack of it. Lust for Life, the title track, was used in, was it Trainspotting or one of those sort of films? Really, really good track. 16, which is just an Iggy track on its own, which is decent. That's very Iggy pop actually. Some Weird Sin, a Bowie track, very, very good, as is Tonight, which he used for his Tonight album. He rearranged it completely. He took away the introduction and turned it into a reggae track. Success was the first single off this, which I think is hilarious. I think it's catchy and it's really, really good. Turn Blue is a tough one. It's a tough listen. I just don't really like it at all. Neighbourhood Threat's a good song, but I don't think it's recorded well here. I think the version Bowie does on Tonight is better, and Fall in Love with Me is a bit like Turn Blue. I'm just not a huge fan. The one track that Bowie did not have anything to do with, and it's probably the most famous song off this, is The Passenger. That was Iggy Pop and Ricky Gardner. So yeah, a very good album, and to date this is Iggy's highest placing album, even higher than Blah 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 whenever he had the top 10 hit in 1986. I think it's got to number 28. And then in October he released Heroes, and you could nearly say this is Low Part 2, but it's not really. The vocal delivery on this album is completely different to Low. In some cases he's almost shouting the songs, especially Blackout and the more the second part of the Heroes track itself. Joe the Lion is another one where his vocals are very, very expressive, and Beauty and the Beast was a single which didn't do that well. I think it got to about 30 something. Sons of the Silent Age is a really good track with a really melodic style chorus, and whenever he performed this live in 1987, it was Peter Frampton that sang that part. Side 2 I actually prefer in this, and this is the instrumental side, so I'm not counting any of these in the top 10 songs. V2 Schneider, well, it's obviously influenced by Kraftwerk, because I think your guy Schneider is in Kraftwerk. Sense of Doubt, which is the weirdest track ever. It's just 4 notes descending on a keyboard, and it sounds like doom and gloom. It's very funeral-esque, but I love it. I love it to bits. I hated it at the start, but I love it to bits now. Moss Gordon and Newcomb are very, very good, with plenty of sax, especially in Newcomb. Moss Garden is a very sort of Japanese sounding track, but it's beautiful. And then we have The Secret Life of Arabia, which to me should have been the follow-up to Heroes, and but I like the fact that it's sitting at the end of side 2 and it's not mixed amongst the other songs, so that you're finishing with a vocal track. But I actually prefer this album just to Low. So what is this collaboration? Well, in October of that year he recorded, along with Bing Crosby, Peace on Earth, Little Drummer Boy. Now this wasn't released until November 1982, when it became a top 3 hit. And you just don't associate David Bowie with Bing Crosby and vice versa, but this works so well. This is my favourite collaboration with David Bowie. I even prefer this than Under Pressure. I think it works really well. The only problem with this is I think the master tapes were wiped, so the sound quality has never been great, but still, it was, I think it went out on Christmas Eve of 1977. I'm not too sure if Bing had died yet, but basically Bowie appeared on Mark Bolan's show, and a few weeks later he died. Bowie then appeared on Bing Crosby's show, and a few weeks later he died. So he was getting a bit paranoid about accepting invitations. But this is a fantastic track, but I'm not going to include it in my ranking. So because he didn't have a writing credit at all, but I love it. So the 10 tracks that I actually would pick are number 10 is going to be Sons of the Silent Age from Heroes. As I say, fantastic chorus, really melodic. At number 9 I'm going to go Success from Iggy Pop's Lust for Life album. And part of this, actually, he sort of refrained it again in the Labyrinth soundtrack with the repeating of whatever he's singing. So he sings a line and then it's repeated by somebody else, and then he makes the line longer and they repeat the long line, and it turns into a bit of a laugh. The song is Chilly Down on Labyrinth, but Success, absolutely adore it. And at number 8 I'm going to go with What in the World from Low, an absolutely brilliant track with Iggy on backing vocals, and to me this should have been a single. Now, he did perform this quite a bit live in the 78 tour, but he changed it. He slowed down the first half of it before the second half was sort of raised in pace. I never liked that live version. It has to be the studio version. And then at number 7, and we'll go with China Girl, which is a completely different version to the version he did in Let's Dance. There's no little Chinese type intro to it. This is more a rock song. Now, the problem with this slightly is it sounds a little bit muffled in production, although, you know, I think it's a great song. And in his later years, Bowie actually more or less did versions of this rather than the Let's Dance version. I think he did both, but you could see, I could hear in some of the bootlegs that I got that he was more or less copying the Iggy Pop Idiot version. So that's my number 7. And at number 6 I'm going to stick with this album, and it's Night Clubbing, which, as I say, is very gothic. It's quite plotty. It's almost scary to listen to. It's great, and Grace Jones does a fantastic version of it as well. Really love that song. Nearly included Fun Time, which is every bit as gothic-y, but I'm going with Night Clubbing. And then at number 5 we will go with Breaking Glass, and as I say, in Australia it was expanded. Now, whenever he did play this live, he did expand it himself in a different way to the Australian edit, but I don't think it sounds as good as this. I think it sounds perfect, just under 2 minutes. It's absolutely gorgeous little piece of music, really good, and that's my number 5. And at number 4 we have The Secret Life of Arabia, and yeah, I just think this is great. It's single written all over it, but never released. You know, there's hand claps and all in this, and I think it would have been a decent size hit. Considering the track Heroes didn't do that well, only got to about number 23 or something in the charts first time round, I think this would even have done better, but still never released. So at number 3 we will go with Lust for Life. This is just so upbeat. It's absolutely brilliant. It's the drums and all, and this is great. Bowie writes all the music. Absolutely fantastic track, and it has been used in various films. And I think it was released as a single in the 90s on its own right by Iggy Pop. I don't know how well it did, but absolutely fantastic album. By the way, I don't like that cover. That's so different to the Idiot. That's almost like a school portrait type thing, or a school photograph. But yeah, fantastic track. Which leaves my number 2, and my number 2 is Sound and Vision, one of his best ever singles. Absolutely brilliant. It's just perfect. I love the long intro. I love his vocals on it. I love the groove of it. It's absolutely fantastic. and it got to number 3 in the charts. Well, the number 1, and no surprise really, and it's the title track Heroes, which is probably one of his most famous songs now. Now I'm putting this number 1 because I'm reviewing the songs off this album. If it was the single version I would have had Sound and Vision above it, but the album version is absolutely majestic, really good, and Robert Fripp's guitar totally unbelievable, and I think he just winged it. So he wasn't given any directions, he just winged it, and it was absolutely brilliant. So number 1, Heroes. So that's a look at what I think is Bowie's most productive year. Like 1993 was another one with Black Tie White Noise and Buddha Suburbia. And I suppose you can nearly say for Britain 1971 was with The Man Who Sold the World and Hunky Dory, although The Man Who Sold the World was out in October in '70 in the States. Can never get my head around why it took 3 months after the States for it to be released in the UK. But anyway, that's me for now. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to have another video quite soon. All the best now. Bye bye.